This is a list of every baseball player whose last name started with the letter A and nothing else. Why? Because I can. David Ardsma, Henry Aaron, Tommy Aaron, Donna Ase, Andy Abad, Fernando Abad, John Abadi, Ed Abachito, Bert Abbey, Charlie Abbey, Andrew Abbott, Corey Abbott, Dan Abbott, Fred Abbott, Glenn Abbott, Jeff Abbott, Jim Abbott, Kurt Abbott, Kyle Abbott, Odie Abbott, Paul Abbott, Al Aber, Frank Abercrombie, Reggie Abercrombie, Bill Abernathy, Brent Abernathy, James Abernathy, Tal Abernathy, Ted Abernathy, Woody Abernathy, Cliff Aberson, Harry Abels, Sean Abner, Cal Abrams, CJ Abrams, George Abrams, Johnny Abrego, Alberto Abreu, Bobby Abreu, Brian Abreu, Eufemio Abreu, Jose Abreu, another Jose Abreu from 2014 to 2024, Juan Abreu, Tony Abreu, Willier Abreu, Winston Abreu, Bill Epstein, Jeremy Accardo, Domenico Ovacedo, Jose Acevedo, Juan Acevedo, Alfredo Aceves, AJ Achter, Jim Acker, Tom Acker, Justin Ackley, Fritz Ackley, Cy Acosta, Ed Acosta, Jose Acosta, Manny Acosta, Marito Acosta, Mark Aker, Garrett Acton, Luis Yangel Acuna, Ronald Acuna Jr., Jerry Adar, Jimmy Adar, Jason Adam, Kersithan Adamas, Willie Adamas, Ace Adams, Austin Adams, 2017 to 2024, Babe Adams, Bert Adams, Bob Adams, Bob Adams, Bobby Adams, Buster Adams, Chance Adams, Dan Adams, David Adams, Dick Adams, Doug Adams, Amory Adams, George Adams, Glenn Adams, Herb Adams, Jim Adams, Joe Adams, Jordan Adams, Carl Adams, Lane Adams, Matt Adams, Mike Adams again, Red Adams, Rick Adams, Ricky Adams, Riley Adams, Russ Adams, Ryan Adams, Sparky Adams, Spencer Adams, Terry Adams, Willie Adams, Joel Adamson, Mike Adamson, Joe Adcock, Nathan Adcock, Ty Adcock, Bob Addis, Jim Aducci, 2013 to 2019, Bob Addy, Joe Adell, Nick Aidenhart, Maury Aderholt, Dewey Atkins, Dick Atkins, Grady Atkins, John Atkins, Merle Atkins, Steve Atkins, Tim Alderman, David Esch, Joanne Alden, Ehir Arizina, Tony Affiner, Jeremy Eiffeldick, Benny Abigana, Tommy Agee, Harry Higgins, Joe Agar, Sam Agnew, Zach Agnos, Juan Agosta, Dario Agrazal, Luis Agallo, Julian Aguilar, Chris Aguila, Jesus Aguilar, Miguel Aguilar, Ryan Aguilar, Ricky Aguilar, Hank Aguilar, Bill Ahern, Pat Ahern, Nick Ahmed, Willie Aikens, Danny Ainge, Eddie Ainsmith, Kurt Ainsworth, Raleigh Atkinson, George Ayton, John Ack, Jack Acker, Daryl Ackerfields, Bill Akers, Jerry Akers, Keegan Aiken, Shugyo Akayama, RJ Alanes, Gibson Abba, Jonathan Abadato, Joe Albanese, Jose Alburo, Andrew Albers, Matt Albers, Hanser Alberto, Butch Alberts, Cy Alberts, and Gus Alberts, and more. Johnny Albertson, Ozzy Albies, Ed Abalsta, Ed Albrecht, Jack Albrecht, Thomas Albrecht, Alex Albertson, Albuquerque, Vic Albury, Jorge Alcala, Santo Alcala, Arizmendi Alcantara, Israel Alcantara, Kevin Alcantara, Rual Alcantara, Sandy Alcantara, Sergio Alcantara, Victor Alcantara, Luis Alcacross, Scotty Alcock, Sam Al DeHegri, Dale Aderson, Scott Aldred, Mike Aldred, Jay Aldrich, Corey Aldrich, Vic Aldrich, Chuck Eleno, Blaze Alexander, 2024, Bob Alexander, Buck Alexander, Shuffle Alexander, CJ Alexander, Dale Alexander, Doyle Alexander, Gary Alexander, Gerald Alexander, Hugh Alexander, Jason Alexander, Koke Alexander, Manny Alexander, Matt Alexander, Nin Alexander, Grover Alexander, Scott Alexander, Spencer Alexander, Ted Alexander, Tyler Alexander, Walt Alexander, AJ Alexi, Jason Alfaro, Jorge Alfaro, Antonio Alfanisca, Angel Alfonso, Edgardo Alfonso, Elifaro Alfonso, Anthony Alford, Luis Alicia, Andy Allenson, Brian Allard, Kobe Allard, Cam Aldred, Alex Allen, Austin Allen, Bernie Allen, Bob Allen, Brandon Allen, Buddy Allen, Chad Allen, Clifford Allen, Kleiny Allen, Cody Allen, Dick Allen, Dusty Allen, Earl Allen, Ethan Allen, Frank Allen, Greg Allen, Half Pint Allen, Ham Allen, Hank Allen, Hezekiah Allen, Horace Allen, Hosea Allen, Jack Allen, Jamie Allen, John Allen, Johnny Allen, Kim Allen, Lloyd Allen, Logan Allen, Luke Allen, Myron Allen, Neil Allen, Newt Allen, Nick Allen, 2022 to present, Pete Allen, Ron Allen, Sled Allen, Todd Allen, Toussaint Allen, Gary Allenson, Jermaine Allenson, Gene Alley, Nick Algier, Gare Alley, Bob Elliota, Allison, Andy Allison, Art Allison, Bob Allison, Dana Allison, Doug Allison, Mac Allison, Milo Allison, Moody Allison, Way Alfred, Mal Almada, Armando Almanza, Carlos Almanzar, Rafael Almeida, Bill Almond, Abraham Almonte, Edwin Almonte, Eric Almonte, Hector Almonte, Miguel Almonte, NC Almonte, Zoilo Almonte, Alberto Alomar, Luis Alomar, Roberto Alomar, Sandy Alomar, Pete Alonso, Rogelio Alonso, Yonder Alonso, Felipe Alou, Jesus Alou, Matty Alou, Moses Alou, Whitney Alperman, Dell Alston, Galvin Alston, Tom Alston, Walter Alston, Porty Altamaro, Don Altava, Ernie Allen, Jesse Altenberg, Aaron Alther, Dave Alleters, George Altman, Joe Altobole, Nick Altroff, Jose Altuve, Jake Alou, George Alisic, Elvis Alvarado, Jose Alvarado, Luis Alvarado, Abe Alvarez, Armando Alvarez, Clemente Alvarez, Daniel Alvarez, Dario Alvarez, Eddie Alvarez, Francisco Alvarez, Gabe Alvarez, Hernan Henderson Alvarez III, Jose Alvarez, Juan Alvarez, Nacho Alvarez Jr., Orlando Alvarez, Ozzy Alvarez, Pedro Alvarez, RJ Alvarez, Ruel Alvarez, Rogiel Alvarez, Tavo Alvarez, Tony Alvarez, Victor Alvarez, Wilson Alvarez, Jordan Alvarez, Max Alvarez, Billy Alvarez, Brent Elia, Robert A. Zoilai, Adele Amadar, Joey Amontefino, Rich Amaral, Alexi Amaristo, Ruben Amaro Sr., Ruben Amaro Jr., Jacob Amaya, Miguel Amaya, Wayne Ambler, Chip Ambrose, Hector Ambrose, Trey Ambergi, Ed Amulonger, Ed Ames, Steve Ames, Alfredo Amazega, Doc Amole, Vincent Amor, Sandy Amaros, Walter Anker, Larry Anderson, Alf Anderson, Alan Anderson, Andy Anderson, Bill Anderson, Bill Anderson, Bob Anderson, Bobby Anderson, Brady Anderson, Brett Anderson, Brian Anderson, Brian Anderson with a Y, Bubbles Anderson, Bud Anderson, C. Anderson, Chase Anderson, Cody Andorson, Craig Anderson, Dave Anderson, Drew Anderson, Dwayne Anderson, Fastball Anderson, Farrell Anderson, Fireman Anderson, Fred Anderson, Garrett Anderson, George Anderson, Goat Anderson, Grant Anderson, Hal Anderson, Harry Anderson, Ian Anderson, Jason Anderson, Jim Anderson, Jimmy Anderson, John Anderson, Justin Anderson, Kent Anderson, Larry Anderson, Lars Anderson, Lewis Anderson, Marlon Anderson, Matt Anderson, Mike Anderson, Nick Anderson, Ornithol Anderson, Red Anderson, Rick Anderson, Roland Anderson, Scott Anderson, Sean Anderson, Sparky Anderson, Tanner Anderson, Tim Anderson, Tyler Anderson, Varney Anderson, Walter Anderson, Wingo Anderson, Robert Andino, Steve Andrade, John Andrioli, and Ernie Andres, Kim Andrews, Clayton Andrews, Curly Andrews, Ed Andrews, Albert Andrews, Fred Andrews, Hub Andrews, Ivy Andrews, Jabo Andrews, Jim Andrews, John Andrews, Mike Andrews, Nate Andrews, Rob Andrews, Shane Andrews, Stan Andrews, Willie Andrews, Matt Andrews, Bill Andrews, Elvis Andrews, Fred Agnes, Wyman Andrews, Joaquin Andujar, Luis Andujar, Miguel Andujar, Norm Angelini, Matt Angle, Tom Angley, Pat Engelman, Rick Ankiel, Dean Anna, Bill Annis, Cap Anson, Eric Anthony, Joe Adelic, Dustin Antolin, Tehe Antone, John Antonelli, Johnny Antonelli, Matt Antonelli, Bill Antonelli, Nori Aoki, Luisa Porico, Bob Apodaca, Luisa Ponte, Shirton Postel, Mark Appel, Kevin Appler, Fred Applegate, Gideon Applegate, Red Applegate, Ed Appleton, Pete Appleton, Luke Appling, Aristides Aquino, Greg Aquino, Jason Aquino, Luis Aquino, Angel Aragon, Jack Aragon, Jonathan Aranda, Pedro Arango, Victor Arano, Elvis Arohu, Pedro Arohu, Jonathan Arias, Maurice Archdeacon, Chris Archer, Fred Archer, Jim Archer, Jimmy Archer, George Archie, Francisco Arcia, Jose Arcia, Orlando Arcia, Oswaldo Arcia, Dan Ardle, Rugger Ardizo, Joe Ander, Danny Odahan, Frank Avalanes, Nolan Arenado, Hippolito Arenas, JP, Aaron Seba, Marie Aaron Seba, Hank Aft, Alberto Arias, Alex Arias, Gabriel Arias, George Arias, Joaquin Arias, Luabert Arias, Rowdy Arias, Colhe Arejana, Mario Arioso, Buzz Arlett, Don Arlett, Steve Artland, Felipe Amos, Marcos Amos, Tony Amos, Ed Arbiter, Oliver Amberst, Charlie Armbrust, Harry Armbrust, Rogello Armbrust, Armor, Buddy Armor, Jimmy Armstead, George Armstrong, Howard Armstrong, Jack Armstrong, Mike Armstrong, Robert Armstrong, Sean Armstrong, Harry Arndt, Larry Arndt, Billy Arnold, Chris Arnold, Jamie Arnold, Paul Arnold, Scott Arnold, Tony Arnold, Mary Arnovich, Brad Arnsberg, Ori Arntzen, Jonathan Aro, Rene Oroka, Randy Rosarena, Luis Arias, Jose Arenado, Jake Herrera, Spencer Arrighetti, Gary Arrigo, Roland Arejo, Bronson Arejo, Kristen Arejo, Fernando Arejo, Luis Arejo, Rudy Arejo, Erisabel Ribiana, Humberto Ortega Artes, Joaquin Artemis, Harry Arundel, Tug Arundel, Randy Asador, Jim Asbel, Casper Asperjorn, Orland Asbury, Corliss Asiano, Jose Asiano, Cody Ash, Jerry Asiano, Miguel Asiano, Ken Ash, Rudolph Ash, Richie Ashburn, Aaron Ashby, Alan Ashby, Andy Ashby, Earl Ashby, Graham Ashcraft, Alec Asher, Tucker Ashford, Billy Ashley, Nevin Ashley, Tom Amuson, Bob Uppermote, Ken Uppermote, Javier Assad, Brian Assalentine, Paul Essemacher, Esquestro Estacio, Pedro Estacio, Barrett Aston, Jose Astroth, Williams Astulo, Carlos Sway, Scott Atchison, Justin Ashley, Charlie Atherton, Kevin Atherton, Luis Altano, Abe Atkins, Gary Atkins, James Atkins, Joe Atkins, Mitch Atkins, Tommy Atkins, Al Atkinson, Bill Atkinson, Ed Hatchinson, Harry Hatchinson, Lefty Atkinson, Dick Atreyu, Tabby Otwell, Bill Atwood, Jake Atz, Harry Abreu, Harry Aubrey, Mikkel Aubrey, Derek Aucoin, Rich Aud, Rick Auerbach, Ryan Augustine, Don August, Dave Augustine, Jerry Augustine, Cornelius Augustus, Eldon Auker, Tex Alds, Doug Alt, Felipe Amont, Rich Arilla, Joe Asuina, Brad Asmus, Dennis Oust, Frankie Austin, Henry Austin, Jeff Austin, Jim Austin, Jimmy Austin, Raymond Austin, Rick Austin, Tyler Austin, Al Autry, Chick Autry, Martin Autry, Abivel Avellino, Bruce Avon, Earl Averill, Skip Avery, Stave Avery, Xavier Avery, Alex Avila, Bobby Avila, Nick Avila, Pedro Avila, Luis Avila, Mike Aviles, Raymond Aviles, Jay Avray, Russell Awkward, Dylan Axelrod, John Axford, Benny Elia, Bobby Elia, Luis Elia, Eric Abar, Manny Abar, Willie Abar, Jake Aiden, Bill Ayers, Doc Ayers, Dick Allwad, Bob Arujo, Asku, Jose Azokar, and Oscar Azokar. That's been every Major League Baseball player as of May 15th, 2025, with the letter A starting their last name.
And again, thank you for tuning into the videos. Don't forget that you can also see me on Patreon at Sammy5436, where it's $1 a month. I also am seeable on Instagram at Sammy54361. TikTok at Sammy5436. I'm on Blue Sky at Sammy5436, though I don't use that often. I believe I'm on Tumblr at Sammy5436, but I haven't used that in at least a year. And you can find me at my business email, thetrapezoidtalks5436 at gmail.com. Any information you need to send to those business emails will be looked at. I generally look at my business email on Wednesdays and Sundays, so just do be advised that I do not always have the ability to respond immediately, but if you do send an email to my business email, and as long as it's not offensive, I will respond if it's something I'm interested in with something positive, and if it's something I'm not interested in, I will thank you for your email and go ahead and say that there may be a future opportunity for us to collaborate if that's something you're interested in.